I'll quickly take you through in terms of introduction. Those are things you already know. Data protection, state of play in Kenya, the trend, what we see as emerging risks and mitigating measures, and the way forward. As an office, we hope by next year we can do an annual trend, like what central bank does in terms of what are the trends in terms of data protection. We are hopeful. So really just reflect for a minute what and I initially when I started this conversation, I would ask people, if I ask you a question, what is your child's name? How old are they? Where do they go to school? Where do you live? It makes you uncomfortable, isn't it? Because you're wondering, they don't know me. It is too personal, unless, of course, you're Gen Z, enjoy sharing everything about themselves. People don't they feel violated in terms of their personal information. So when it comes to data protection, really, it's a fundamental of trust. It's trust. And whether you want to look at it from where we are largely leaning towards GDPR, or you want to look at it from a consumer protection, the American way of looking at it, it's really an issue of trust. And it's about, and when you look at it from a tech perspective, it's really I would say it's the glue that holds. It's in the center of any tech conversation. And therefore, the importance of building trust between your customers on one hand and the company on the other, and not using the information as if and when you like, is so critical for us in business or in government. Because when they don't feel safe, you find yourself in court and endless litigation, or they don't want to come and share information with you. But when they feel trust, and even in our own personal relationship with our children, I don't want to use spouses, I don't know. With our children, if children trust their parents, you can see even communication becomes better. But when they don't trust, they now start lighting for you fire on the neighbor, an uncle. They tell, go and ambie mami, amekuwa kama Saddam ama Hitler. So trust is important for us. That we already know. The next slide in terms of where we are and where we are coming from as an institution from the Constitution. I know, just to pause a bit, when the issues around data protection started, I say the makers of the Constitution were visionary. I really doubt that anybody, when we put there the right to privacy and to have the information for their family, and shared unnecessarily, I really doubt we understood what it meant then. But now we now have the Data Protection Act to actually argument this issue around privacy. Of course, as an office, this year, sometime November, there are plans underway, hopefully with some people, to see whether we can have a small celebration of, we are 5 years, by the way. Please clap for ourselves. We are 5 years into the Data Protection Act. I mean, it's a major milestone. For a child, they probably are in P1. And then, of course, the issue of regulations. Those are things, I'm speaking to people who are in this sector so they understand what data protection is. But just quickly, because this is a moving some of them are moving targets, so it's just important to just remind ourselves in terms of the regulations that we have, the implementation of our strategy. We will be launching our second strategy within the first or second quarter. The operationalization of our office, we now this year will be able to open our offices officially in Nyeri and Eldoret, and then we'll take a pause. And then, of course, the development of guidance notes is something we have been very keen on in terms of making sure we have guidance notes. We have on registration, we have on telecommunication, we have on digital credit providers. I believe that is one of the areas we've really, really invested. And health, we are beginning to see some trends in health. We want to focus on health. Education also. Of course, the DPIA and consent and electoral purposes. I have a feeling that the electoral purposes will come to play in a short while. The registration, we are looking forward to partnership with yourselves in terms of getting more people to be registered as data controller. If you help us register as data controller, you are going to help us boost our ENA and less reliant on National Treasury. So we are looking forward to that. The complaints that we have received so far, the determination, the enforcement, and the penalty notice. Interesting. You all seem to challenge I'm not saying people in this room, our decisions nevertheless. Anyway, it's interesting that the data subject who will come and complain to us and we give them a compensation of maybe 251,300,000, they are still dissatisfied. They'll still go to court and say, please upscale my. And then the data processor, we really do encourage alternative dispute resolution. And then when we find you, and we've given you all this time to have a conversation, you also still go to court to complain. Anyway, that is the nature of the work. The establishment of a training unit for us is significant. We have been able to train over 1,000 public and private agents. And for us this year, we are going big time in terms of capacity building and awareness. We are putting money into it because we've realized that the strategies that we had previously, and this is one of the challenges we had, Ken, you talked about the issue, I'll remind you, called WorldCoin. I'll speak about it slightly later, but what we have realized, the initial strategy was one, to put in money at Kenya School of Government to credit providers. But you've noticed that still the absorption is still less. People are still complaining they don't have budget lines. So we want to put resources there and actually do massive training this year. Automation of our processes, filing of our complaints is automated and registration is automated. And of course, the curriculum development and the Kenya School of Government. We've so far issued DPIA or 138. We have issued 192 advisories, and we have conducted 58 inspection and audit. We also developed alternative dispute resolution framework, and we have had 15 matters resolved. We really hope that area can grow, because the more we resort to dispute resolution, the longer it's going to take. And I want to give you an example. For us, when a matter is on judicial review, it's likely to take shorter. But think about it. Our processes are supposed to be cut off at 90 days. By then, you also have an opportunity to do ADR. If you resolve, then you finish that, you complete that process. But imagine, when you go to court, you don't know. I hear the diaries are full until next year. I would really encourage us to consider seriously about when you have matters before your data protection, consider using alternative dispute resolution as an option. So when it comes to the complaints received for us, we've given a diagram in terms of status. We continue to have an increase in terms of complaint. Every time, by the way, Gen Z, thank you very much, those of you who are Gen Zs, for kunisalimia. Our Facebook page grew, thank you. Our Twitter page grew, thank you. And now you know we exist. And just to pause on that one, is there any difference between a digital lenders who bombards you with unsolicited messages and a Gen Z who bombards a private citizen with messages? Is there a difference? I just want to understand. Which are the difference? Maybe me, I don't know. The what? Oh, the age. What is the result? What do they want? Financial exploitation. But the principle is still unsolicited. Isn't it? In the definition. I mean, I know this one it's a lobbying way we have discovered, but it's still unsolicited, isn't it? It is still my private number, isn't it? Isn't it? Do I stop being a private citizen because you know, if my number is out there, it's fine. But now, when you now start, because I think, and I'll say they pause, because it's a conversation we must have. I have a problem. I have no problem with you bombarding a member of parliament with all the messages. But when you go below that, you now start looking for the officer, police officer, their child. You now start pulling out where they live, and you put a circle. Am I not the one who has just asked? Does it make you comfortable when people ask you, who is your child? And then, your child is playing outside the compound. You know, we all live in this town. There are a few people who may have, anyway. And then you see outside somebody is following your child. I mean, how does that make you feel? How does it, in terms of your own personal security, how does that? Because I need us to discuss bad manners. I need us to discuss, and to be honest, because now what is happening, because we are all so scared, we don't talk about it. We all don't talk about it. We say, Nisawa, I have no problem with the principle of pushing for rights. For your information, Rosemary will tell you, my background is human rights. I think rights first before anything else, and justice, as a person. But beyond that, I've had you, now you start looking for my child and where I live. Is there not something wrong with that? I mean, one, on manners, but two, more importantly, security. Isn't it? Because we need to discuss it, because it looks very easy. It looks a vogue to talk about it, to harass people. But I want us to think back in terms of the Holocaust in Europe. What happened? What did Hitler do? He took advantage of people's race and profiled them based on their geolocation. Isn't it? So you might be happy to be targeting an individual because you feel that they will put pressure on another person. However, you're exposing them. You're exposing them because we are all not good people, isn't it? We are all not good people. And after all is said and done, people will still come. I want us to reflect on that. We have to look for a way of saying we have to draw the line on the sand. This is acceptable, this is not acceptable. But more importantly, which perhaps me I will, I may not go into it in detail. It's an economic issue, which has nothing to do with the data protection. It bothers me that all these Gen Zs we have, nobody has come up with a social media platform. Why can't we develop a social media platform and share on it and get revenue? Iyo pesa yote munapeleka wapi? Where does that money go? I want to challenge us, because, where does that money go? Iyo pesa sawa, we are 100,000 on X. Did you get a cent? Did you get a cent? Africa, wake up. Can we stop being receivers? Can we stop being receivers? All those brains can come up with a social media platform. And you can be the one earning. Me, that one on economic, please. Apo, tujiulize maswa. Anyway, back to my issue around compliance. So, having said that, when we look at the trend in terms of compliance, one is majority are really digital lenders. And I'm afraid we had tamed it. We are seeing a resurgence, especially after the protest, because I think there is a tendency of people not paying their debts. We are seeing a resurgence. We are considering as an office to take this as a further step of degazetting some of these notorious digital lender, or even collaborating with the central bank, so that if they have a license, they are completely struck out. Because it cannot be, we've spoken about it, we have invested heavily on digital lenders. We have trained them, we have built their capacity, we've done audits, but even after that, we are still doing the wrong things. I have an issue with digital lenders. Then financial institutions, we have hospitality, you see government and microfinance, insurance, individuals, and others. Those are the trends. In terms of what our determinations are, those are the trends in terms of the 5,000 whatever we have received. The trends also, we've seen an increase in the adoption of data protection regulatory framework. I wish I used to keep a tab. I remember some time back we had a meeting between banks, central bank, and one of the things you really have to appreciate about banks is their partnership around cybersecurity. And those days it was something that we didn't speak about. But when you begin to see, 2 years ago, banks never even used to put money, or the industry basically, in terms of data protection officers. Now we are beginning to see that as an increase. Growth in privacy-friendly technology, People are more conscious about it, and they are no longer just adopting technology. And one of the things we would see, and it's coming down, is a disconnect between marketing and the compliance. So you'd find the people who are going marketing and selling products for the organization, they would share, they would get as much information as a client. Yet on the back end, the compliance are saying, please do data minimization. So now we are seeing a growth in terms of a balance. We are also seeing the integration of data privacy and information security. People are no longer just looking at information security. They are also saying, hey, can we look in terms of compliance, in terms of data protection? The role of AI, I'm happy that you have a session about AI. It's become the biggest issue right now, and it's not something we can afford to ignore. Cross-border transfer, the Dean did talk about it. It's important for us because many times, I don't know, do you have data centers here, or they're in cloud, or they are where? Cloud. Yeah, everyone says cloud is cheaper. But cloud where? Don't tell me. But it's interesting that 3 years ago when I worked in the Electoral Commission, mulitupeleka mbio. When was this? No, it's not 2017. Ati waliweka data wapi? I mean, it was cloud. It was the most secure. You almost ate all of us in that petition. I mean, hey, this country, wow. Hey, if you don't have thick skin, ati cloud. Ati they could not open the servers. They were in France. Up to today, by the way, even me, I don't know where that data was stored, but it was in cloud. It was a security issue. You don't need to tell everybody where the information is stored. But in terms of the cross-border data, because that's the point, the reason why this is becoming increasingly an issue is because many organizations prefer to store the information in cloud. And the cloud may not necessarily have residency. In fact, majority of people who store data in cloud are not hosted here locally. They are hosted in other jurisdictions. We are hopeful as a country that improvement of infrastructure with Liquid and Konza and others upcoming data centers will be able to become a hub for in as far as data storage is concerned for cloud. Heightened awareness on consumer, and I mean, I don't need to say anything. Every day there's a complaint about something, and mostly image. It's coming down, but even the latest is a multinational. I mean, let's stop using people's images. It is so. Even I, my office, I've said, excuse me, if we entered into a contract with somebody and the time came to an end, please delete. We can't use people's images. It is. And you know, the minute we get into a determination, your fine utalipa, your compensation utalipa. The minute we get into a determination, and then the other thing I've seen, which is very unfortunate, we tend, in private sector, we tend to puuza or take things for granted. You say, when a client complains about an email, about an image, about anything, please set up your alternative dispute resolution. Because you see, you will ignore, you will not listen to them, they'll come to us, and when it lands to us and there's facts and you can actually prove, then what do we expect? I would want us to pay, and I don't, at times I think there's no general awareness across the institution. Because at times, and perhaps increasingly institutions need to alert legal or customer care. If there's a complaint in as far as this is concerned, please let us know. Because at times, inaishia huko, by the time it is coming, you're coming to firefight. And you'd have resolved it a long time ago. Because those are some of the things that we are seeing increasingly. And by the time it comes to us, obviously there'll be a compensation. So why don't you resolve it in advance? Okay. So what are the emerging risks for organization? Inadequate governance structure and resources remain a risk. We still think that not enough resources. If we were to do, and by the way, for information, banks are the most compliant. They go out of their way, not digital lenders, because even those ones lend. We see they really go out of their way in terms of making sure that they have structures and governance structure. The other risk, and I say, it's not about the 500 or 250 In fact, there is one we said, there was one, in fact, the most interesting, I think you've mentioned here, was the one for a designer. Me, I don't want to call them tailors, they're designers. And they contribute tremendously to the cottage industry in this country. This designer decided they are going to take photos of their customer modeling, and then they will then post it on their TikTok and their Instagram account. Sasa mtu ambaye anashona nguo anajuaje maneno ya data protection? Oh, and to them, their client came to complain. Those ones you say minimal, but see, I mean, if somebody who is going to a designer is complaining about their image being used, what about a multinational? So, but it's not the amount, it's the reputation. And I say, we are a global village, and the internet never forgets. And anything you post, whether it is true or untrue, people come back to it many moons later. Imagine, and many times banks borrow abroad. Sindio? That is where there are more favorable rates. You're found culpable of a data protection issue, and you're going to borrow money from a European country where data protection is treated as high risk, non-compliance data protection. What do you think this is what will happen? By the time you start explaining to them, and your competitors are the ones who will take this information. Oh, you know, it was only an image. Oh, it had nothing to do with the data. Ah, my friend, the credit rating will have gone now off. And that's why I keep saying also, if you're a big brand, try and negotiate many of these things out of court. Try and negotiate, and so that it doesn't become messy or affect your reputation. Productivity and revenue loss, of course, is the issue around trust. If people don't trust you, they will invest less in you. And unajua tu ni watu wanasema, anafanya ABCD. Before you know, your plumbing, your profits are going down. Of course, the other internal risk is balancing privacy with other interests for innovation, for instance, and I've also said marketing. And it's a very dicey conversation. It's a very dicey conversation. Because people in innovation are not going to understand why you're adopting what commonly is called in data protection, privacy what? Pets. Yeah, privacy enhancing technology. They will not understand why you're adopting yet. In fact, we said it's a complete re-engineering of computer science school. Because as a computer scientist and as a coder, from coding to testing to putting it in the market you're taught to harvest as much information as possible. And then these people for data protection are telling you data minimization. Kwanza in AI as a training tool. Data minimization, my foot. Me, I need more info and more accurate so that I can train more. Because by the time we get to machine learning, it is the information you put there, how it then evolves, and then but the more I have, the more it becomes better for me in terms of product. And then you're telling me what? Data me? Sasa wewe unataka tufutwe kazi. That is part of the risks. However, I want to say, when you look, there are many companies who've succeeded in this area in terms of data minimization and are still succeeding. The other one is regulatory fines, and I think Ken actually showed some of the regulation fines that some companies have had, and even Kenya we've had many. Where we want to do a compendium this year in terms of the fines so far and determination. External risk, of course, cybersecurity attacks, and then of course the dynamics of ICT landscape. Today we are talking this. Tomorrow is this. There's a lot happening. So I think it's important for companies in your research and development to continuously update yourself in terms of what is happening across the globe. Evolving regulations. We've still not settled in as far as data protection is concerned for your information. There's a conversation about what we call CBPR, Apex, Mara, I don't know what. So we have not settled. So that evolving of regulations, there is a general agreement across the globe that we need to have standards in as far as data protection is concerned, and to make sure that there's easy data flows. There's that. However, we all know when it comes to business interest, we may not always agree. So, of course, the third-party cookies is a big debate across the globe. I've seen there's pushback. Google had tried to embrace third-party cookies for a long time. I've seen they've tracked back, and you see it's a big issue. Because many times in terms of data protection, actually that's a risk factor. Because it's the third parties who get your information. It's not actually the person who actually got your information in the first place. Surveillance capitalism, and I have talked to that. I've said the reason why data is the new oil, I can sit, and by the way, it's a great equalizer. If the owner of Meta started doing this when he was in school, what stops us? And we have great innovators here. So the fact that when we have data is what drives the economy, it means that the more information you're getting, it means that the way that the data protection regime is centered is to put guardrails. However, remember, the more information you have is more money you're making. So right there is a small conflict. So capital surveillance is an issue. What would I say would be our mitigating factors? Just uphold the principles of data protection. And you will see, even as you speak about artificial intelligence, one of the risks that has been identified over and over again as far as artificial intelligence is concerned is the issue around data protection. Keep monitoring the privacy landscape, because you do not want to be caught flat-footed. Also conduct, if you're convinced that you're doing high-risk work, do your DPIA. Keep up in terms of the technology, and I've talked about pets. Just spend time understanding what pets mean. Privacy enhancement technology, they are there. It's a big conversation in the world today. And of course, your governance structure. I often say, please don't allow data protection officers to be in the same department with ICT. Because the violators of data protection are ICT anyway. So if you put them there, watakanyagiwa, elevate them, because they will never tell you the truth. Akisema this one anambia hapana we achana na hiyo. And then by the time you know, it's actually a big deal. So it's good to, in terms of your governance structure, it's better. I see increasingly, because we don't have limited resources, people looking at audit, compliance, and data protection as one. And I think that is what you should consider. Just as a request, as I conclude, please help us register more data. I think we are going to put a commission, Ken. Whoever brings us the most data controllers, we are going to have an award, the biggest, the one annually in terms of recognition. I think, Nyokabi, that's a good idea. An award of which industry. If Sharon helps me get many, because Sharon, you have a portfolio of 500,000. I'm just asking for 50, not many, and even you have many agents. Because registering as a data controller and data processor, more on a serious note, it actually begin the compliance journey. You now begin to reflect on what this means. And I keep saying, in my office, we are here to consult. Even now, we even have offices across the country. You can always encourage your staff to walk in there and ask. Even if at times it may take long because of the backlog, we always respond to queries. Whether it's on data flows, cross-data transfers, something you don't have clarity on a DPIA, we always review and give you feedback. We are here to help, because I believe at the end of the day is that if this ecosystem is safer for all of us, we are building trust for our customers, then we thrive together. There's no need of walking around with a stick and not empowering you in terms of making sure you're doing your work. Because at the end of the day, everybody, good business is good for the country, and it's good for all of us. It's good for us as public servants. We'll get our pay. Anyway, thank you very much.